It's that time of the week again. Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Cheap Seats, where we sit in our cheap seats, well, very virtually, and we talk about the English Premier League. We talk all things about the Premier League, mostly Manchester United, getting shown flames by an Australian, and Tottenham's new little acquisition there. I see you, Dean, with Destiny Udoji. I was impressed. Really, I was. Um, and also, what's going on at Chelsea? All the kids, are they all right? We'll find out all about that. We've got Cyrus, we've got Wahid, who wasn't on in our preview show, but he's back for a new season, sporting the new United jersey. How are you doing?
Good, I'm good. Good to be back on the cheap seats. Always good to chat to you boys. Really interested to hear what Cyrus has to say about all those millions of pounds spent to look like a poor man's Aston Villa, but let's go ahead.
I'll take it, considering you've spent millions of pounds on our former players. So let's see how that goes.
Okay. Speaking about former players, poor man's Aston Villa, the show is sponsored by Classic Shirts today, so you can go to their website and have a look at the kits that they have there, similar to Wahid. You could look like him, or you could look like the Manchester City fans, which are not on this podcast. But if you are a Manchester City fan, this is for you, for being champions and winning a Super Cup, which is just like the Community Shield for Europe, though. And yeah, so you can go to Classic Shirts today to have this kit. Do you know what this kit reminds me of? It reminds me of that Aguero season kit where City won in the last minute. It's
literally
like
nobody asked that. Let's move on.
No, I love these memories. It reminds me of an old Coventry City kit. So that's way, way back.
Yeah. So if you want to relive, if you're a new City fan and want to relive 2011 or
there's no such thing as an old City fan.
Yes. Well,
I believe there are lots of old City fans. When you go to Manchester, you see them. It's the rest of you guys who are just bandwagoners out there.
Yes.
Then,
I saw none. I walked up and down the street, saw none.
Yeah.
They've got a boss who's begging them to fill their stadium 3 months after they won the treble.
They're properly working class, They've got other priorities. Energy crisis.
Expensive. But anyway, guys, if you want to go get this kit, you can go into Classic Shirts ZA. Remember, use the Cheap Seats 99 discount code. Is just to let them know that we sent you. Remember, you can also subscribe to the One World Sports Radio YouTube channel where we're all on. We've also got rugby happening on Friday night, which is weird. But anyway, it's called the Qatar Airways Cup, which is something else. But
it's a bit like our Saudi Cup that we won.
Yes. And so, yeah, the Springboks are in that weird predicament like that Spurs has, where you need a trophy, but if you're not going to win the World Cup trophy, is the Qatar Airways Cup enough? But
it's enough for us.
The parades will be incredible.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's week 2 of the Premier League season. We're starting to see patterns form. We're starting to ask questions, and
there's no that's the problem.
Well, this is where we're leading to, right? The pattern I'm seeing is a broken team.
Yeah,
you couldn't put Wolves away, who effectively had a manager 3 days before, and to a certain extent they played pretty good football, apart from obviously the goal they conceded against you, and also the penalty that were denied. But then against Spurs, when I thought maybe this would bring United into gear 3, 4, 5 or something, and they were outclassed by an unknown manager. I don't want to make Ange, feel like Arsene Wenger.
He's known. He's known.
Definitely known. He's our rescuer.
Just not by everyone. I mean, Dean just learned how to say his name about 3 weeks ago. So,
yeah. But
Gerard say that name.
But it was weird because Spurs played a format of football or type of football that I thought United would be playing and be better at. And you could see where the quality was at United. But then Spurs just played better in that second half or whatever. But
better.
Yes. But the question to me, for you, Wahid, to start off with, right? You said United were disjointed. I say they are broken. And my question is, you've got Ten Hag in for a season. What more do you need to fix it? Because I looked at that 11, I was like, are they going to buy more players? Because this isn't it.
So I don't know if we'll buy more players, and I think buying more players probably we're not going to buy anybody at this point who's going to significantly improve that 11. We might improve the squad, but with the ownership up in question still, I think we've been saying this for 11 months now. With ownership up in question, I don't think you're going to see significant changes to the 11. You'll see Rasmus Højlund come in at some point. I'm led to believe that the profile of that type of player will help the way we play. I'm not sure. I've never seen him play. I've seen some YouTube clips like Dean does every time they get a new manager. He has to go watch YouTube about how this
YouTube
unknown
FC.
plays.
My YouTube clips are better than his YouTube clips. There's only 9 of them of him scoring a goal. It's a very short video.
But are United broken? I don't know, Mbo. So my big problem is in terms. I don't see the end goal. Well, I kind of see the end goal, but I'm not sure how we're going to get to it. So he's brought in Mason Mount, and I think that's been the big change is that he wanted someone who's going to offer him more legs in midfield than Eriksen does, which he's asked the players to go and do a high press system where Mount and Bruno sort of are the press triggers very high up the field. And in actual fact, they've done that really well. I thought that for all the criticism Mount got in the Tottenham game, I actually thought he did his job really well. People talk about how many touches of the ball he had, etc., etc. But I don't think that was what he was tasked to do. I think he was tasked to put a lot of pressure on the Tottenham players very high up the field. Problem with that is I'm not sure we have the personnel out wide to complement that type of pressing system, which has left sort of like a gaping hole in midfield and Casemiro trying to firefight 3 players running at him for large amounts of both the Wolves game and the Spurs game. So I think this is not necessarily a case of United being broken versus Ten Hag trying to, Ten Hag needs to come up with a better way of using Mount, considering the level and caliber of the wide players he has. He's used Garnacho out wide, not a hard worker. He's used Anthony out wide, not a good footballer. And he needs to find a way of ensuring that the wide players don't allow for this sort of like tidal wave of runners coming through our midfield. So I don't think it's broken. I think it needs tweaking, and I think he has the personnel to tweak it. When you've got a centre forward who will lead the line, you've got Rashford, who I think is a far more disciplined player out wide than Garnacho. Mm-hmm. Having said all of this, I don't think Ten Hag is faultless at all, and I do think we've reached a dangerous point where with some United fans where this manager is seen as a little bit infallible, and questions don't get asked of the manager, and I think he's gotten it wrong twice in a week. He's gotten his system very wrong, and I have some questions that I would like answered. So, for example, we played Rashford out wide in preseason with Sancho as a false 9, and that really helped that pressing system because Sancho, for all his shortcomings, does have a little bit of a footballing IQ, which I think
there's a player there, to quote Wahid Vadi.
Yeah, there's the footballing IQ, which I think some other players in our team lack. For example, Anthony. So we play the system throughout preseason. It does quite well. The midfielders are used to the system of a false 9 with Sancho playing there. And we get to match week 1, Sancho's dropped and Rashford's down the middle where he is very uncomfortable. So I don't understand why you'd spend 8 weeks working on something and can it in week one of the season. So that's one of my main questions around why, like, what we're doing, what's the end goal here. So I think he's sort of like treading water until he gets Højlund back, at which point he can put his new profile fit, if you want to call it that, up front, move Rashford back to the left, and sort of try and cook again. But I'm not sure that it's going to be such a simple fix. Whereas to me, the simple fix was there. Use what you did in preseason. Use what you practiced on.
My other thing was, because I think you're looking at the top, but like in midfield, are you not worried? Because I'm about to jump on the Casemiro's finished bandwagon. I know it's a little early,
No, so
and
I'm
you got to
not.
give him a bit of the doubt, but
I always
um,
said Casemiro was a good footballer or great footballer, but a very bad buy. And I said that because of the longevity of the player, and in comparison to his transfer fee and his wages. However, I do think that another one of the problems is that we've got the wrong personnel on the field trying to do what Ten Hag wants them to do. So you've got Luke Shaw inverting at fullback when Luke Shaw is a lot more comfortable underlapping or overlapping. And I would suggest that if you were going to play someone who's going to come inside and invert and support Casemiro when you've got these waves of attack coming at you, I would think that Dalot would be the best suited to doing that role, coming off the right-hand side into midfield and inverting. So he's got the situation where he trusts Wan-Bissaka more as a defensive player, so therefore plays him. And yes, Wan-Bissaka has been very good because his one-on-one defending is very good. But you need to look at the system you're trying to play and whether Wan-Bissaka's one-on-one defending is giving you the enhancing the system versus a player like Dalot who could fit into that system. At this point, with what he's trying to do, inverting one fullback, it makes no sense inverting Luke Shaw, who's not good at that. It would make more sense at getting the right-sided player to invert, and the best player would be Dalot, who's sort of been frozen out for the last couple of months.
Is it not because he doesn't want... Yes,
I want to say something there because I think you've raised a really interesting point, especially around Ten Hag. And I think this is something that I think a lot of United fans, a conversation they should be having more of, is what is the manager actually doing here? Because do you basically work with the players that you have and work in a system that allows them to be the best that they can be? I mean, you look at Luke Shaw last season, and he was superb. And it was because he was being utilized the way he should be. When you start to use those guys, and Luke Shaw is definitely the canary in the coal mine here, as soon as you use him in a system that he's uncomfortable with, you could go back to Mourinho, and suddenly he looks like he doesn't know what's happening, confidence goes, all of that stuff. But I think that what Ten Hag is doing, and to your point about the playing Sancho as a false nine, is that he utilized that to see exactly how much he could get out of it, and probably saw that he'd get less out of Sancho as a false nine than Chelsea did with Havertz as a false nine, in the sense that, yes, he'll give you link-up play, but who's really going to get a lot of the goals around him, considering Antony's failings? And I think that Antony is pretty much the Richarlison of Man United right now. If not... No, I think they're pretty much the same, because I think Antony actually gets on the ball more, which is a plus for him. So when I look at it, there's been question marks about
of Brazil.
Yes,
he's a one-trick pony.
He's Denilson. He's Denilson. The old school Denilson, when he came onto the scene, step overs like you've never seen, and then he disappeared, went to Real Betis and never to be seen again. The thing about Antony, though, is that he was a bit of a Sean Wright-Phillips, a big fish in a small pond, specifically in the Netherlands. And I think that this step up has been a really tough one, because those tricks that he has aren't necessarily developing into anything substantial for the club. And so just to round off the point here, I think there are question marks to be asked of the manager, and I think that the Mount acquisition could be extremely helpful if Mount is utilized effectively. But the thing is, this is his first time playing at a club that isn't Chelsea, and he is one of those guys where, and you'll see this at any job you go to, there are guys who are great. They get moved to another department, they then just do what they're asked to. They don't necessarily do anything outside of that, and that's what Mount is pretty much doing. Like you said, press machine. He'll go there and press like you've never seen before. All the other stuff, well, he doesn't know if he's allowed to do it yet. And so you're seeing a player who's not doing anything at all.
I think I just want to go back to a point you made about what Ten Hag's idea is, and I've looked into that a bit, Sai, and I think that people expected him to come here and redevelop his first iteration of Ajax. And it doesn't look like that's the way he's going to try and go. The heavy possession based Ajax that we saw a couple of years ago. I think he's looking for his second iteration of Ajax with the 1-6 and 2-8s, but the 2-8s at Ajax were effectively 2-10s. And you need to remember that in the Eredivisie, Ajax only need to be good at their attacking transitions. Their defensive transitions aren't that important because because teams don't necessarily have the ability or personnel to go and take Ajax apart. So we're now sitting in a situation where Ten Hag is trying to recreate a team that was very good at attacking transitions, but didn't make much of an effort in the defensive transitions, which is exactly what we've seen in the first 2 weeks of the season. United have created a bucket load of chances in the first two games. Against Spurs, penalty goes your way. A penalty goes your way. Bruno buries his header. And it could be a very different storyline, because we've actually attacked decently, bar bad decision making in the final third. So the problem is on the defensive transition is that he's paying very little attention to it, and now you've got wave after wave of attack coming through the middle of the field. Casemiro looks lost, but is it not just a systemic issue insofar as that Ten Hag is almost ignoring this aspect of the game? He keeps talking about being the best transitional team in the world. Great, but you have to be the best transitional team in both attack and defense.
So from my point of view, obviously having played United on the weekend, you kind of get the opposition's point of view of how they're setting up and how they're playing. And I agree with Reid. I think United were, if not probably the better team in the first half. I think I agree with, if they create the Bruno header, if you nail that, it's probably a different game. But the point is he didn't. And that's also another point, that there isn't that goal scorer in that team that is going to absolutely bury those chances at the moment. But to the point, you're probably waiting for a Højlund to do that. But while he's not there, those are the kind of chances which are leaving this United team in a bit of this sort of no man's land. And if you have a look at the way I was expecting United to set up, like as soon as I saw Rashford through the middle, I thought, okay, it's fine, because all you have to do all day against Spurs is play Rashford or a quick winger on the left that's going to run at either a Pedro Porro or a Emerson Royale in the Spurs team, and anyone is going to cause us problems. That never happened, and he just kept going to the middle, and it's easy to defend against Garnacho. On the other side, it doesn't matter who Anthony is running at, because he's not going to be able to run through anyone.
Is a lot of the issues up front, obviously it's a Ten Hag system, but Bruno can see. Well, I'm looking at Bruno Fernandes because I'm sitting there going, and it's the same thing I have with Arsenal, actually. It's weird, but Arsenal doesn't create chances, United does. But the question for me is, if Rashford is happy to come off the left, couldn't Bruno step up into that false nine role and push that line up and have Rashford go left? But does it break that pressing system?
Ralph Rangnick tried it and he sucked. Don't do that. Don't take a good player out of a position he's good at playing.
Bruno's very good at what he's doing. They're creating a lot of chances. They're just not scoring goals.
But why are they not playing Anthony Martial? This is the thing for me.
He's not matched for it, the manager actually likes him. When Ten Hag talks about Martial, I think he genuinely likes the profile. I think he just doesn't trust the player's body. And when he's played for Ten Hag in Ten Hag's system, he hasn't done awfully. I know he hasn't scored many goals, but we've been quite good with Martial on the field. I'm not a huge fan of Anthony Martial, but
he's definitely a better 9 than what Rashford is, though.
Yeah.
Or Sancho.
But my thing is, you want Rashford on the left, right?
Yeah. I want to finish this, and you're going to conclude on the is United broken? I think United, in terms of how people are looking at us, thinking we're broken, is that we are a good team when we're defending, but we're not a good team. So if you've got your defensive set up, that team is very good once the defense is set up. Varane, Martinez, Shaw, Wan-Bissaka, Dalot are good at defending. What they're really bad at doing is defending in defensive transitions. And I think that's what needs to change in order for United to start looking a bit better. When a team hits us on the counter, we look absolutely lost. We don't know where players should be, and players are looking around at each other. So until we sort that out, yes, it will continue to be broken.
Wow. Okay. Before Escom decides to take Cyrus away, this weekend we watched Chelsea just go through the ringer. And that ringer was David Moyes. They lost to a David Moyes side that was playing with 10 men for like 30 minutes. It was a weirdness of this, like, what is going on? Like, West Ham aren't this good. They can't be this good, but I don't know. But Cyrus, I'm going to say it's because there's kids. What do you say?
So there's a few things for me that I think we've got to go through in terms of the story of the game, the story behind the game, and then what happened within the match itself. Because I don't think West Ham in any way outplayed Chelsea. I think what they did was that the moments that they had, they excelled in. A James Ward-Prowse corner and a header at the back post isn't necessarily sparkling champagne football, but it works in a system where you've got the guy to give you the delivery. West Ham didn't necessarily have that last season, so they were able to get the most of a Chelsea that were obviously still trying to find their feet, especially when it comes to set pieces. When you look at what was happening with the actual football match in the first half, Chelsea were unbelievable. It was some of the best football I've seen them play in a very long time. And I think somebody also needs to check if Mauricio Pochettino is a sangoma or, practices voodoo, because there was a dead body running at pace in Raheem Sterling. And it was just unbelievable. I haven't seen Sterling play
best
that
game
well.
in Chelsea colours.
By far. He was just unbelievable. He looked so confident. He was unleashed.
He actually took on people.
That's exactly it. And so, although Chelsea lost that game, and quite badly, I was not particularly upset by the performances. And I think this is the one thing that I've seen throughout preseason leading into this game, and including the Liverpool game, was that there was actual football being played. There has been, for the last maybe 5-6 years, a sideways ball, a keep possession in order to recycle it and see if there might be a glimpse of something at some point. And it never really opened up for Chelsea. So when the comment about not being able to break down 10 men comes up, I've seen that for the last 7 years. I don't think I'm all that upset by it, because Chelsea just have not been able to do that against teams that sit back. What was a little frustrating was not making the most of the opportunities that came up. And that isn't necessarily just a striker issue, but I think somebody like Nicholas Jackson he's just an incredible link-up footballer. Not just a back-to-goal guy, but when he drops deep, he reminds me of how Firmino was as a false nine, with pace, being able to get around into spaces. The only difference being that he needs to start adding a finish. And I'm going to say something really controversial here. If we go all the way back to about 2004, when Drogba came to Chelsea, the exact same thing happened with him. He thought he needed to be Nicolas Anelka, was trying tricks and flicks that he couldn't necessarily do, and he wasn't banging in goals left, right, and center. Everybody then turned around and said, Drog who? And the question marks were there. Is this guy good enough? Does he have the profile to succeed in England? And it was a matter of time before eventually he found his feet. And I think Nicholas Jackson is going to be similar in terms of what he does well. The difference being Drogba could head the ball like it was a foot on his face. Nicholas Jackson, his face is definitely for modeling and not for heading the ball.
Look, for my FPL team, I hope he takes out Luton like a boss. And he lets us know who he is.
He'd need it. They need to give him the penalty. In fact, if anything, I think if he'd had the penalty against West Ham, though, I think he probably would have missed it too. So,
Cyrus.
No, I haven't seen enough from the penalty takers in the Chelsea perspective. But just to conclude the whole thing around what happened with Chelsea on the weekend was you suddenly saw somebody like Kani Chukwuemeka playing some incredibly good football, because he was also told, just go out there and play. Now, Dean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you've been through the Poch roller coaster before, so you also understand that when Poch is good, especially in the attacking phases, often that is at the detriment of defense. And so when the team is really good going forward, there's going to be some opportunities for the opposition to get at you. And I think that's what we saw on the weekend. And it also doesn't help that Axel Disasi, who was really brought in last minute as a replacement for the injured players, is just not that guy.
Yeah, I think it's a important point that you touched on this, because a lot of when I watched that Chelsea game, a lot of it did remind me of that sort of 16, 17, 18 Spurs team where you on attack it is all out, but there's just that missing sort of creative midfielder that can sort of unpick that lock and kind of get through a team that's playing a low block. And to be honest, I think that's been Poch's sort of Achilles heel in terms of his systems, where there's sometimes just a little bit of a lack of a creative midfield, like a number 10 that's just going to try find that pass, try to do, something a bit different to try and get behind the lines. And I think in that Chelsea side, especially if you look at the midfield, I don't think Enzo is that guy. Caicedo is definitely not that guy. So it's just one of those things where I think a lot of clubs might kind of have figured out how to play against the sort of Poch type team, even though on attack they are really, really good.
But if that's the creativity that's lacking, Cyrus, you spend so much money buying these young players. Can't you find someone there who can play?
No, there is a guy. There is a guy, Christopher Nkunku. It was just that he got injured in preseason. So that was primarily, that number 10 role is his. It belongs to him. Yeah. You've had Kani Chukwuemeka deputizing. Now he's also injured. So the question then remains, okay, so who do you start moving into that space in order to try and unlock teams? But I don't necessarily think that that's what Chelsea are looking at.
Can I ask a question there? Sorry, just to stop your train of thought. Why are you going to play at 10? You spent £280 million on a 6 and 2 8s. So where does the 10 fit in there?
And another 100 on a winger who's
no. I'm just talking about midfield. I'm just talking about midfield.
Well, but so who are the 2 8s?
So the 2 8s are Enzo and Caicedo. I think is how he's going with Lavia as the 6.
I don't think that's how he's going to play it.
So the 10 fit in, because then you're going to have to use Nkunku as a false 9.
So I think Poch's system is really almost a 6 and an 8 who is roaming. You see that with Enzo, the 6 being Caicedo to try and mop up. Lavia is Caicedo insurance, because you don't necessarily have a defensive midfielder outside of Caicedo within that system. So
off the bat, you don't think Lavia is brought to start there?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And this is also one of the reasons why I think they've bought young, is the sense that young players will accept what a stern coach will tell them, when they're going to play, how they're going to play, and then adapt to the system. And Lavia will get his games and minutes as the season progresses. But I also see why Poch had left Caicedo on the bench, is that he realized he needs time with the unit in order to really adjust. The biggest issue that Chelsea had was chasing the game against West Ham. If Enzo scores that penalty, obviously it's a different game, but it's the same as when Bruno missed the header against Spurs. These missed chances will cost you in games where people really aren't afraid. And that's why I think Chelsea have got to make the absolute most of playing Luton at Stamford Bridge on Friday. But I do think that the thing is that 10 role is really important in the Chelsea system. But I think that there's going to be a lot of the ability to switch, that you'll find guys sort of coming in to spaces in order to try and create space on the flanks. And then the point about the injuries comes in. Poch likes to play with advanced fullbacks. Malo Gusto, who is playing his first season in England, is not going to be running up and down there because he's also worried about his defensive duties. If it was Reece James, it might open up more opportunities on the right. Ben Chilwell, as your sort of left-sided guy, it will do a lot more, but then it's what happens with Levi Colwill. So he's got an embarrassment of riches in terms of the players at his disposal, the ones that are fit at the very least.
But then just that brings up another point just quickly on the Chelsea team. And I've seen a lot of people mention it as well. Like, Poch loves playing kids. Everyone knows that. And there is a lot of youth in that team. But that also then brings about the other thing of there is a little bit of a sense of maybe lack of experience in that 11. Apart from a Thiago Silva and a Chilwell, and now Reece James that's injured for however long. Those are really your only 2 experienced players in that 11, which kind of you could see on Sunday towards the end of the game where it really are chasing, and there is a little bit of like a rashness to them. It's kind of Mudryk trying to
the rashness, definitely. Though to that point, I can't think of too many players in this Chelsea team who don't have Premier League experience. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a give and take in the sense that you look at somebody like Robert Sanchez, he's played in the Premier League quite a few games, so it's not as if he's inexperienced. Axel Disasi, this is his first season in England, and you can see that he's struggled with the adjustment in strength and pace and that sort of thing. But then when you look at the other guys around it, Enzo has done way better this season than he did last season, now that he's sort of adjusted. Caicedo has played in the Premier League. He's had one full season and played pretty well. It's now the adjustment for a new team. I think that the youth will obviously cause a lot of problems because there will be what happens in tight games like the West Ham game. When do you play out? When do you hold on to the ball? When do you make certain plays? But I think that the flip side to that coin is that is what allows them to do the inventive. Chukwuemeka's goal against West Ham is exactly that. You don't often get these experienced guys who just say, you know what, to heck with it, I'm going to go and take this guy on and have a shot. And so it is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the biggest advantage, but can also be one of the biggest downfalls of the team. It's going to go either way, and it's going to go either way this season. Like,
so,
it's just going to be that way.
I was gonna say, so Enzo actually looks world class at the moment.
Yeah.
He looks absolutely world class, and I know last season I had a bit of a laugh.
Oh, you had a full go.
Yeah, at how this £105 million player looked, but he looks absolutely world class, and that is a player you want to build a team around. I wanted to ask, Sai, in your opinion, looking at this team, two things: who is your starting spine in an injury-free at an injury-free point, and is it logical for a team to spend €1 billion and have Robert Sanchez and Nicholas Jackson as the tips of that spine?
Let's start with the last part first. It isn't logical, but this also goes to something I absolutely hate about modern football right now, is that yes, close to £1 billion, it's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous amounts of money. Chelsea have overspent at least 4 or 5 or 6 times in numerous transfer windows. But then you look around at what's happening in the league, and there is a knock-on effect. Declan Rice going for £100 million is also absurd. But then you have Anthony. How much was paid for him? And these are, I don't want to call Rice average, but Anthony certainly is.
He's worse than average.
I'm just being kind. but you get my point, though, right?
You make me miss Antonio Valencia.
But in terms of the spine, right? For me, the perfect, and we're literally going goalkeeper, center backs, midfielders, and then an attack. Sanchez is the guy right now and will be, because we're signing Petrovic, who is a backup to him. And I'm okay with that because I don't think Sanchez is horrendous. I think that Levi Colwill needs to be playing in the center, not necessarily out wide. And if you put him next to a Thiago Silva, that's okay. But Thiago Silva is also not the youngest guy you've ever seen.
Thiago Silva.
Happy birthday. So good. Yeah. Though, if I'm being honest, that role then should be a Fofana or a Badiashile. And Badiashile is actually my pick because he's steady. And last season, he looked really good. You look at the center mid, and then you start to think, okay, fine. Let's say it's Caicedo and Enzo. Caicedo, with a few games under his belt for Chelsea, should be enough of a solid defensive presence within that system, with Enzo doing what he does. And I will let him run around like anybody's business. And then I'm not averse to having a Nicholas Jackson up front with an Nkunku behind him, because I've seen how well they link up. Preseason is never really the gauge of how well a team should play, but it can be a gauge for the relationships that you see building, because football is all about relationships. And Nicholas Jackson is one of the best links in any Chelsea team I've seen in a very long time. I haven't seen any striker come back, bring the balls back, and give them the absolute best touches to the right players at the right times. That might be the biggest problem with him, is that he's potentially too generous and not selfish enough to take on shots when he should do. I think that's going to be the key thing. And I think that as much as all of us will be like, Nicholas Jackson, what the heck? He's going to change a lot of people's opinions as the season wears on.
Well, I hope he does, because then that makes me a very happy man.
Dean Henderson.
if I'm being totally honest, I would take him, but I guess we've got a guy.
Guys, Robert Sanchez is fine. He's a good goalkeeper.
He's
I don't understand
he's
why
not a
people
terrible
are
goalkeeper.
Deserby just didn't like him. That's all.
Exactly.
Look,
it's
much like many of us don't like some of our co-workers, it happens. Hey co-workers, no, I like all of you. I think the thing is, it seemed to be a relationship issue as opposed to an ability issue, right?
It's like that Trossard issue that he had with the issues Deserby had with Trossard. It was just like, yeah, you're benching, and Trossard's like, hell no.
He's Italian.
But when we had the conversation in the show where we previewed the season, and you asked what is my expectation for Chelsea, I said fourth would be fantastic. That would be the best thing that could happen.
Are you revising your expectations, Cyrus? Like 2 weeks in?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that losing to West Ham derails that. I think that if it had been a lifeless performance, nobody knew where anybody was, and the entire game was just West Ham absolutely tearing Chelsea apart, then I'd be like, okay, we'd be lucky to get sixth. But I'm still very, very optimistic as to what will happen for Chelsea this season.
Friday night against Luton, what do you want to see? And what's
I want to see a 6-0 win with goals from everybody. Poch will come on and take a penalty. But in all honesty, a big win would be central for what I think should happen. Chelsea played one home game this season, and it was a draw against Liverpool in a match we could have won. It was a fantastic performance, and I think that West Ham was a continuation of that, except there were two things that happened in both games, and there were slow starts where Liverpool scored early in the home game and West Ham scored early in that away game. So if Chelsea can shore things up at the back, create as many chances as they did, possibly even get Raheem Sterling playing the same way. I mean, Zombie Sterling, I'm all for him. And my all-time favorite thing would be to see Nicholas Jackson get 1 or 2 goals at the bridge, and because that will change everything, not just an FPL thing, because I've also got him in my team, but that confidence that he'll have should actually bolster more performances. I know we'll talk about Dean just now, but I just want to say this: Ange Postecoglou. How did he do that with Yves Bissouma? Because Bissouma looked unbelievable.
Let's talk about Bissouma.
I'm going to leave the show now.
No, but honestly though, Wahid, Yves Bissouma.
Let's go there. Is this thing sustainable? Because I'm looking there going, no, Yves Bissouma can't play like this. What is this?
You guys remember in the preview show, and I said, who's going to play 6? And I said Bissouma, and you guys were like, last season's Bissouma, he's not going to be anywhere. 2 man of the match performances dropped, and that guy is untouchable. There was a video yesterday. Yesterday, the Spurs Twitter account posted a video of him tying his shoelaces, and half of the Spurs community on Twitter was like, how have we gone from hoping he plays for 10 minutes to watching videos of him tying his shoelaces? We are like idolizing him at the moment.
Okay. Dean, what do you think of, obviously Angeball came in, you watched him on YouTube because it's YouTube FC. You heard all the rumors, Australians coming in. He's unknown. First game at the toilet seat, and he blew away Manchester United it was like you beat them for the first time in like 5 years. Well, first time in this new stadium, actually.
First time in a new stadium, yeah.
You spoke about Destiny Udogie, and I was like, wow, okay. Pedro Porro was like, okay, dude. Even that centre back, that I don't know,
Mickey van der Ven.
Yes, Van der Ven. Okay, we see you, but obviously, I wouldn't be getting carried away because I looked at it, I was like, this team needs a few more iterations, but the structure's there, the plan's there. Like I know Yves Bissouma has been playing incredibly well, but if you could upgrade that position, my word.
So I think the best part for me I 100% agree with you. It's been 2 games, but no way am I saying let's go, like we're going to challenge for the title now. Like it is just really good to see that Ange spoke about in preseason and has promised that the way we're going to play is actually how we play. And it's that front foot football where we are pressing from the top and we're actually doing it fairly well. I know that with our sort of backline, it's really still not that great. Like Mickey van der Ven and Christian Romero are good, but they aren't like, they're still getting coached into the system. So there are going to be some frailties, and there are frailties and weaknesses in the team. I think Son and Kulusevski still aren't 100% sure how to operate in the system. They kind of want to cut in, whereas Ange needs them to sort of stay wide and create the half spaces with Destiny and Pedro Porro running in between. So there is still a lot of sort of learnings to come about. But what's really great to see is that he's playing the youth, trusting the youth. And we speak about Basuma, and he's honestly been unreal. But even that Pape Sarr performance on Saturday versus United, like he's 20 years old, like he's one for the future if he keeps playing this way. The signing of Maddison has been honestly probably
vice captain
Chef's kiss.
It's happened 2 seasons too late. Like I'm sitting there going,
I'm sitting there saying, can you imagine this man with Kane to aim at? Like
that was my thinking. Yeah. Did you not think that Kane in the system, even though it's like a rebuild and a transition, I would have stayed for this.
But that's why everyone was like, Kane, don't go. You literally have got the 10 that you've been craving since Eriksen left. Like you're gonna score.
And he's like, nah, rather get silver.
He's like, no, I'd rather go to the German league. So, but whatever. Like, I don't want to think about that. All that's really good is we're seeing the way that we want to play, and we're playing really well. The problem is there are a lot of sort of pivotal people in that system where one injury to Maddison or a Basuma right now, and it's sort of derailed very quickly.
But isn't that where you need to spend the Kane money, right?
It's not being spent by the club.
Yeah, we want to spend the money, but the problem at the moment is, and Andrew said it also in presentations or the sort of conferences, where we have to get people out. Our squad is just bloated at the moment. We still got Eric Dyer, we still got Davinson Sanchez, still got Lloris, still got all these people on the books and we just need to get them out because we can't register.
There's a certain midfielder who won the league in Italy.
There's a certain team in London that doesn't believe in Robert Sanchez. Can you send them Lloris?
I would send Lloris anyway, to be honest. But all I'm saying is, Angeball, the way that he wants to play is exactly how we're playing, and I think it's just going to get better. The best thing for me is we beat United, which United played poorly, but we played well, so I'll take that. Brentford is probably one of the tougher games that you'll play because they play with a back five.
Like Henry and Pires
there. But somebody needs to explain to me how nobody has looked at Mbuemo. Like he would be so good on so many teams, but it's just like, no, he's just, he's.
There's a certain team in Manchester that wears red that went and paid 70 million for a guy who reminds them of, I don't know, Bebe to a certain extent.
He would be good.
But there's a guy there who sits on the right and can do amazing things at Brighton, at Brentford.
For me, it's
so many players like that. Like even when we played Wolves, like Matthias Cunha and Nunes, both of them would walk in our team.
Well, we saw what Manuel Solomon did to Luke Shaw. He basically ended his soul. So even Manuel Solomon, Solomon would be better. But for me, the best thing about Spurs is that people are actually looking at us and going, "Whoa! Like we haven't seen Spurs play this well since Poch." Like
I'm entertained. I won't lie.
And that's the thing. It's entertaining football. Like we're gonna win games, but we're definitely gonna lose games. But it's fun to watch, even for a neutral, because you're going to be like, wow, they're going to be super attacking, but they're going to be terrible in defense. So, and the one last point, just to round it up, is our goalkeeper, which is a no-name from Italy.
So good.
Really, really good game. Really confidence building.
Guglielmo, what is his name?
Vicario. Yeah. So,
what do you still need in the window to challenge the top?
Mbuemo, right?
No,
pay 40.
We need another centre back. We need another 6, and we need another winger. Who that's going to be? There's
Maguire, McTominay, and
I think you're missing. I think you're missing the point here, Wahid. That it's only Chelsea who can sell their offcuts and get good money,
Exactly.
It would be great if we could get those. Realistically, I think hopefully one, maybe two. We're looking at Gift Auburn. We're looking at Gift Auburn as a striker, 30 million, but I see Fulham's also after him.
This team.
He's really good. But the thing is YouTube FC's work so far. So let's just say the stuff that I've seen is pretty good. But I'm upset about missing out.
We're not saying go for
Saudi Arabia.
No. We're saying go find a serviceable striker in the league.
We asked for Balogun, and you guys were like, let's just add an extra 40%.
Wait a couple of months. Wait a couple of months because the Ivan Toney sweepstakes are going to open up for a lot of people.
That's honestly the person I'm waiting for. Like, if we don't sign someone until Jan and we wait for Toney, 100% happy with that.
You can bet on that.
Who I think would fit in at a lot of Premier League sides is this Iranian striker at Porto, and I watched a few clips of him, and I think he'd do really well.
Something.
Taremi. I think he would fit in really well at Spurs, and I think at 30 he would be a good option for a team like United too, just to give Højlund a bit of time to settle in. I think a player like that might be one that you keep an eye on towards the end of the window.
We already inquired, and apparently has no interest in going to England at the moment. It's a name that Ange has already.
He has come up, but I suppose this is the thing. Now we're out here trying to solve all of Spurs' problems. I always look at some of the other teams in England and think, are there not players who could do well in systems that are a lot better than what they currently have? And you're gonna laugh at me when I say this, but he's a young player. He's actually done quite well for the last season and a bit. And Dominic Solanke would not be a terrible shot as a striking option, considering you have very few options at the moment. And he's played at some bigger clubs, not necessarily done particularly well at them, but you give him the opportunity that you're giving Richarlison, and I think you'd get a lot more for him from him.
The way I feel, I'd play Destiny Udogie up front and that man just run around.
Well, if you do, you have my FPL as well.
And it looks like he's been playing in the Premier League for like 5 years. Like
the man lives in the opposition box. It's like ridiculous. I'm like, dude, do you even defend?
He's going to be top 3 left backs in the league soon.
Dean's asking for 6, and I think 1-6 that needs to be solved before the end of the season, before the end of the transfer window, is Calvin Phillips. That dude is very good and too good to play no games, and he's to find a new club. And that could work at so many of the above issues. So United can't get involved because it's cross-town rivals, but he would solve issues at Liverpool, he would solve issues at Spurs, he would solve issues at so many clubs in and around that top 6, and he's way too good to be sitting on the bench every week.
There's another situation that we also need to look into, is that Newcastle one. Obviously, I'd take Wilson. He's slightly older.
I don't see them letting him go.
Yeah, that's the issue.
He had come to mind, and I just don't see them letting him go. Interestingly, tell me if you, Dean, would take somebody like an Eric Lascelles from Newcastle, because he's captained them before.
Isn't he old?
Isn't his name Jamal?
Jamal.
Oh yes, he is Jamal. Don't know why I said Eric. Oh, because that's an actor.
Yes.
Jamal Lascelles. My bad. When you get to my age, these things happen. But
he was there before City or Chelsea existed.
Yeah, it's true. Like before this United fan base was born. I like the look of him, and there's a lot of these players where, like a Tyrone Mings before his injury would have been somebody that I think Villa would have wanted to hold on to, but if pressed, could have let go. And he's also
do they not need a ball playing centre back, someone who's comfortable there, being able to play the ball?
That's what we need. Is
Jamal Lascelles gives me a traditional English centre back who gives you that structure, that ability to ward away stuff. He's very,
We need a centre back that's comfortable
on the
we need a centre back that's like comfortable with the ball, but because we play so high, we need someone that can get back quickly and be able to defend. And that's very hard to come by.
Seems like he's into bound.
Yeah.
Lewis Dunk, if you want to go back and go to Brighton and
Brighton aren't selling any of their players for it.
They've done their
business. You go to the Brighton shop, you got to have checks on you.
Yeah. Who are you
one person
telling?
I would have loved a Max Kilman from Wolves, but he just signed a new contract,
he's good.
and he's like Mr. Wolves.
He's that type of player you would need.
But haven't you struggled? Haven't you struggled with former Wolves players though? Looking at you, Matt Doherty.
Yes.
It's tough when you're a Wolves fan and your marquee signing for the window is re-signing Matt Doherty.
Yeah.
But
no, that team is going through the most. But somehow they look better than the relegation candidates, which is like weird. But yeah, that's Wolves. Lastly, before we go off, quick one. Has there been any player or team that has surprised you where you're like, what? Obviously, everyone's going to say Brighton, but if you say Brighton, tell me which player Brighton is surprising you, or if there's any other teams.
Brighton haven't surprised me because the first 3 games of their season were their easiest games. They literally played Luton, and then they played was it Wolves this weekend, right?
Yes.
It was Wolves, and then they play West Ham like now. So these next 3 games.
And they've got us after that.
Are the easiest games that they
have.
It's 4 easy games.
It's 4. Okay, fine. It's 4 easy games. Like you would expect them to absolutely run over these teams. So I want my sort of questions will get answered with Brighton after these games. I want to see them play a Newcastle, a City, Liverpool. I want to see them play those types of teams, and then I'll see if Brighton are sort of all that. The team that has surprised me is sort of Newcastle, that looked really good defensively against City. And can probably looks like they're sort of picking up from last season and absolutely demolished Villa.
They're a sneaky pick for the title because I think you will really struggle with them at St. James's Park.
From last season, I was saying Newcastle are no mugs. And they've done good business recently. Tonali is a good player. That Lewis Hall will walk into that team.
Are you hurt?
So he's a converted midfielder, but he plays extremely well at left back. I mean, if you look at the games he played for Chelsea,
I just don't understand the business then, because they had Dan Burn and Trippier as the established
and Dan Burn
and Lewis Hall.
Are you a Tolkien fan by any chance, or watch Lord of the Rings? Because if you've seen an Ent before, they're just these trees that walk, and that's Dan Burn. And frankly, he doesn't give you much going forward. He's a solid guy at the back, does his job as a left back. But what Lewis Hall gives you is the ability to get up the pitch. What Livramento will also add
on the left.
Yeah, exactly. He should give you a heck of a lot more. And he's so calm on the ball. I haven't seen a youngster just so unfazed by anything that's happening around him, and that's what happens in that Chelsea academy. Lewis Hall should be a real upgrade for them at left back, but he'll also give them the ability to cover in the midfield positions as well when they need it, because there will be issues with Bruno Guimaraes, there will be issues with Joe Linton, and he'll just slot into there as well. So he'll also be able to invert if need be, and that's why it's such a shrewd signing. Sad to see him go, because I think he was one of those who, from that Chelsea academy,
he literally signed a new contract at Chelsea a month ago.
Yeah. Look, we spend all this money and we make a lot of money too.
Yeah, net spending at Chelsea is really good. Cyrus, who surprised you?
Quickly and Paul. Yeah. Arsenal. Happy, sad, confused.
I'm frustrated. Like Wahid, right? We spent entire preseason playing one system. And then day one starts, you're sitting there going, what the hell is this man doing?
You guys looked very shaky versus Palace.
Yes, and in the first game against Nottingham Forest. And it's largely because of this whole...
He's overthinking like Pep. Like
it's
overthinking.
So his big thing that keeps him up at night is the fact that Zinchenko is injured. And I think if Zinchenko is playing, our lives become easy. And if you saw that final 15 minutes against Palace, Zinchenko comes on, everyone starts calming down. The system somehow works even with 10 men. So I'm waiting to see what that looks like with Zinchenko and who he takes off. In my estimation, Kai Havertz needs to sit on the bench. I like his movement. I think his movement is weird because somehow he remembers that he played a false 9 at Chelsea and he keeps on going onto that line when we need help getting the ball down to the left-hand side of the field, because he's effectively Arteta's overloading one side, and then he's looking to one of the either Partey or Saka or Odegaard to get the ball across as quickly as possible, because you've double teamed everyone on the right, but Martinelli sitting there asking for the ball, and the person who can do that is Kai. But Kai keeps on pushing too far up instead of sitting in. But he's doing well. He's playing okay to be what it is, and
he's a good team player.
He's doing what he's being told.
It's nothing different to what he did at Chelsea. Nothing.
Yeah, but the issue is Mikel Arteta. It's the overthinking. It's the shiny toys. It's the what can I do? Whereas, dude, you had one of the best defenses in the league last season. Don't break it and then start from there. But because I like Declan, I think he's playing really well. I just need Mikel to just go back to what was winning, and then we can tweak as we go along, because this thing was just ridiculous. I'm happy they got out of Palace. That was the other thing, right? I'm happy they got out of Palace, because when Tomiyasu got that red card, all of a sudden Bukayo Saka's back to being the most versatile football in the world, playing left back, and everyone's now defending for their lives. And old Arsenal would have folded. Yes, there was a penalty shot, but I don't think there was contact or enough contact to do whatever to cause penalty. But
you and VAR. VAR, you know.
I know, right? But VAR has been horrible, and they'll probably apologize to Crystal Palace tomorrow. But I don't have confidence. Every time I watch Arsenal, I'm weary, and the fact that we've got United in 2 weeks is irritating, because I don't think the system's better down to take them out. And this could be the game that actually maybe turns United's season. And then 2 weeks later, we've got Angeball, where we should put them away, but the way we're playing, we're going to be found wanting. However, I will say this. William Saliba is...
He's classy.
I hate that he's so good.
He's classy.
He's not as good, but he reminds me of a young Rio Ferdinand.
And it's that reason that makes it Mikel think he can do whatever he wants to do with the defense, because he's got Saliba there sitting in the middle, mopping up everyone's thing. And I think it's unfair on Saliba, but also it's just like Mikel trying to be Pep with the player just as good. And Pep has had incredible centre backs, but that's the one part of the game where he doesn't tweak so much.
John Stones, you know what? I think you're a midfielder. What? Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. No, it's one of those. And the thing is, I feel that Arsenal are in a very weird limbo at the moment, because they haven't hit their stride yet. And it might take too long and allow other teams to catch up with. And you don't necessarily want to be there. I feel Man City's there for the taking. Yeah, exactly.
I think at the end of the season, Newcastle will be the team pushing Man City to the end. I think we're playing too slowly. And I'm glad Pep is back, but if Saka gets injured, we're also in trouble, because we currently can't score goals without him. So hopefully it changes, because you've got the personnel, and I don't mind Kai Havertz coming off the bench, guys. He's a really quality substitute.
It's a tough thing to spend that much money for a substitute. Only high class teams like Chelsea and United and Man City can do that.
Kai Havertz is not going to be a super sub. He's not the player who's going to come in and change a game, because the way I look at the Premier League, a player coming off the bench, an attacking player coming off the bench, needs to be playing 100 miles an hour football. Kai Havertz doesn't do that. He's not going to come on and change games. He's going to come on and try and calm a game down.
He's ponderous.
He's not going to change. He's not going to turn a game on its head and win it for you.
Oh, yeah. Depending on the circumstances. Because I think the other thing is, he's one of those players who's extremely calm on the ball and doesn't rush. And to your point, subs are there to change the tempo, and often to up the tempo if you're chasing a game. But I think that Havertz's role within that Arsenal lineup is also one that hasn't specifically been defined. And that's really what's actually showing up in these games where you see him play. And it's the same with Mason Mount. You haven't seen anything. And United fans are going absolutely berserk left, right, and center. Why do we even sign this guy? Look at this. No touches, no blah, 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 blah. But the reality is he's still needing to find out exactly what the manager wants from him. to answer your original question, and Paul, Aston Villa are the team that surprised me, and it will be because of their up and down performances. They will lose horribly to Newcastle. A lot of us will, but then it's the comeback game from there. And I'm a massive fan of Zaniolo. I do think that they'll be able to get something out of him. And
Leon Bailing's having some sort of second
how is that
surge.
surprising? How is up and down form from Aston Villa surprising at all when their coach is Unai Emery? That is the most Unai Emery thing of all time, to be up and down like that.
They got smacked by a Newcastle team that looks very good. That's the only thing. If they lost to like West Ham, you'd be like, it's Unai Emery. But like Newcastle,
honestly, that's going to be their whole season. They're going to be up and down. They're going to beat teams they should. They're going to lose to teams they shouldn't lose against. It's going to be the classic Unai Emery.
I don't disagree with you, especially after the Tyrone Mings injury. That for me is the key thing here, is that if Mings was there and then they were integrating Pau Torres slowly, they'd be able to say, okay, fine, now we can actually shore things up at the back. Now you've got Torres playing and he's like, okay, let's just learn on the job. And so I think that Villa are going to have lots of games that will be up and down. But I think the thing is, I think the point I'm trying to make is there will be more ups than downs for them this season. And I think they've got yes, Leon Bailey's playing great, but there's also that Diaby that they signed, who's also fantastic. There's a lot more quality at Villa and being utilized properly. Shout out to you, Steven Gerrard. And that's why I think that Villa will have.
You deserve Steven Gerrard as your next manager. Steven Gerrard as your next manager. When I pray at night, that's what I pray for.
Guys, all I'm saying is Ange's probably going to stay at Spurs for like 10 years.
Oh, God, this guy has a cult following. Like
at
people are going to get kangaroos tattoos soon. Like,
you don't. You see, people forget, and this will be my last point because I might have to rush out of here. But people love Aussies till they are too Aussie for them. And this is what happens with the likes of Eddie Jones. Happens with the likes of a lot of different people, where it's just like, yeah, we've just reached our full quota, and we just can't do it because they are self-deprecating. They can get absolutely furious at times, and when things don't go their way, well, you'll hear about it.
Oh, yeah, Ange might throw Daniel Levy under the bus anytime soon. Because the window closes
with
in
the
like
Fosters.
7 days.
With the Fosters.
So, yeah, but okay. Anybody surprised you this 2 weeks?
Seems like a weird answer, but City and the way they've used Julian Alvarez. I didn't ever think I'd see Pep playing two strikers. Pep's playing two strikers. He's kind of copying what Brighton did last season, but just doing it better. And City look phenomenal as usual. They're doing it differently as usual. Every season, it's like spitting up something absolutely new. And now we've got two of the best strikers in the world playing together in a system that suits both of those two best strikers in the world. So I'm surprised.
Harry Kane's playing for City.
I'm not surprised at how good they are, but I'm surprised at how they've used two strikers. I didn't think I'd see this from Pep.
Yeah, no, they really are clicking. For me, it's
and now signing Doku.
The rich just keep getting richer. I don't understand why any of your other clubs couldn't go for Jeremy Doku. But now
because we've got Anthony there, so we can't upgrade him.
We tried.
You guys have one job, and that's to prevent City from getting better. And Jeremy Doku there.
If he gets another 11 jersey, I'm done. I'm so done.
Oh, he's gonna cause problems. My surprise pack is actually Alexander Isak. I've been a fan.
Again, why?
No, I think he's gonna be the reason why Newcastle do well. Like he gets in the right position. Yeah. And I think he's gonna get to about 20 goals this season, but we'll just have to wait and see because I think Newcastle is hot, guys. Like they are pumping.
Champions League nights are gonna be incredible again.
Oh, it's St. James's Park.
You're rocking.
Dude. Yeah. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our show. Thanks for joining, guys. And good luck with Luton on Friday, Cyrus. We expect minimum 5.
6 goals.
Okay, you
As
said
long as they
6.
all scored by Nicholas Jackson, then we all.
Yes. Then it's like, wow, Nick Jackson, who knew?
We expect minimum 5 transfer record signings to be on the field all at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah.
with 12-year contracts.
Exactly. And Wahid, good luck this weekend. I don't know who you playing. It's weird.
Nottingham Forest.
Nottingham. Is it at Old Trafford or is it at
yes.
City
Home
Ground?
game. Home
Okay,
game.
Old Trafford.
The last time we
hopefully-
played Nottingham Forest at home, I was in the Stretford end. Great game.
Oh yes, last year. Yeah. So all the best with Serge Aurier, and his assist machine, and Dean. Who do you have this
Bournemouth
week?
away,
Oh,
going down to the South Coast. It's a tricky game because Bournemouth could rock up or they could not rock up. And
That's
Maddison
the
might be-
problem
They
with
won't
Spurs.
rock up.
How is Bournemouth
We
a
could
tricky
win or
game?
we could lose.
Yeah.
But this is quite refreshing for me to go to every game and be like, whatever happens, we'll play fun football. We might lose, but it's fun to
Spursy.
watch. So
Okay.
that's
It's
the way I'm
Spursy.
trying to approach every game.
Yeah.
But Madison,
Anyway,
the
good
one
luck.
thing is Madison. If Madison is injured, I'm very worried. So we'll
No,
see.
you'll just drop Richarlison down and
Yes,
play
he'll play the
Udogi
10.
as your striker.
Yes. Destiny all the way. Destiny's the
Can't be
destiny.
worse. Can't be worse.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the fixtures of football. We'll be back next weekend with a couple of days of the window closing, so we might do a last minute wish list for that deadline day in case United need another striker or Spurs needs the number 9 from who's not played on YouTube,
Belgium.
and Cyrus needs to break another
Lukaku.
record because we want to sign another child.
That's what we do.
Oh, Lukaku would be great at Spurs. But anyway, we'll talk about that next week. Outside of that, goodbye and le sale cacajizo.